Hi, and welcome to what is a recap to the fact and opinion activity that you did for last week. Now, the reason that I had you do the activity was to point several things out about the differences between fact and opinion. Number one being that that difference isn't as clear as we might think it is all the time. Granted, some examples can't really be questioned. I'm thinking here of number 11, where the statement was trains are a pleasant way to travel. I've been on trains before. Some of them have been nice, some of them have been horrible, so I really can't call that a fact. That's a statement of opinion no matter what. On the other hand, though, some examples of those statements could really be either. Think, for example, of the ant being the best musician in the orchestra, number 8. Well, you might think so if you're the only person who's thought about it and talked about it, but there is something that might mean that the entire orchestra has agreed that your aunt is the best, and in that way, it would become a fact for the whole orchestra. If your aunt is the first chair in the instrument that she plays, that would mean that there is agreement among a large group of people that she's the best, which would mean that the thing is a fact within that group. So, whether something's a fact or an opinion is usually based on the amount and quality of the information belonging to the group that the subject matters to. Think about number 2, for example, the one that says there are too many people on the planet. Well, again, the presence of the wording too and many often says to us that it must be a statement of an opinion, but all the same, more and more information seems to be pointing to the fact that we've got too many people on planet Earth. So, couple that information with empirical data, things like the amount of pollution going on, couple that with data about the effects that human beings are having on the environment, and all of a sudden it starts to look a lot more factual. There would be a lot there that would make us all agree that it's a problem. After that, think about number 6, where we say, my mother makes the best pancakes, and several of you pointed this out. Within your family, well, that's a fact, because you've all agreed on it. Looking at number 10, now we've got something slightly different. I think a lot of us would agree that smoking is bad, but there's a difference between that and saying smoking should be illegal, right? In other words, there's a larger group that would agree that it's bad and a smaller group that would agree on the illegality of it. So I could see how that would be an opinion for the most part. Number 19 just goes to show that sometimes, depending upon the information available to us, things change. Once upon a time, particularly in the era between the Cold War and the beginning of this century, space travel was viewed as being much more important than it currently is. Now, thanks to budgetary issues and changing priorities, that's no longer the case, but for all of those years, especially given the time that we were in the space race between us and the USSR, all the information we had seemed to make it that space travel was the most important thing that we would do. Finally, I'm looking at number 23 that says that a wind turbine is a modern windmill used to generate electricity. I don't know about that. It's easy to accept that on the face of the thing, but just think about how a windmill looks versus a wind turbine that you use to create electricity. They're actually pretty different. One's a whole lot prettier than the other. Plus, in the end, they served different purposes. The windmill often ground flour or other grains versus the windmill that creates energy, a whole lot different than the other one was. So again, right, whether or not we agree with this is based upon who we are, the groups that we're in, our own biases and opinions, and the amount of information that we've got. So just remember that. A fact isn't always a fact, and an opinion isn't always an opinion. A fact is only a fact if we can prove it. An opinion is only an opinion if we can support it. But sometimes if information changes, the one does start to look a lot like the other. Thanks.